You being gone would be the best gift, my daughter said. I replied, consider it done. Then I canceled her college tuition payment, transferred the fund to my retirement account, and booked a year-long trip around the world. When the university called her about the bounce check, I, 54 male, raised my daughter alone since she was 7 years old. Her mother left us for someone she met at work and moved across the country without looking back. She sent birthday card for maybe 3 years after that, then nothing. Complete silence for over a decade. I was everything to my daughter after that. Father, mother, cheerleader, disciplinarian, chef, homework helper. Everything a kid needs, I tried to be. I worked as a civil engineer for the same company for 26 years. Good salary, great benefits, but more importantly, stability. I wanted my daughter to have a life I never had growing up. I grew up genuinely poor. Like actually poor. Free lunch program, hand-me-down clothes that never quite fit, sharing a cramped bedroom with 2 brothers poor. I swore my kid would never know that feeling. So I saved. Every bonus, every tax return, every extra dollar went into 2 places, my retirement account and my daughter's college fund. By the time she graduated high school, I had $127,000 set aside for her education. Not enough for some fancy private school, but plenty for a solid state university with room and board covered completely. She got accepted to a good school about 4 hours away. Business major with a concentration in finance. I was genuinely proud. First person in our entire family to go to a real university. The first 2 years were mostly fine. She came home for holidays, called me once a week, usually on Sunday evenings, sent pictures of her dorm room and her friends. Normal college kid stuff. I paid her tuition directly to the university each semester, gave her a monthly allowance of $800 for food and other expenses, and covered her car insurance and phone bill on top of that. Junior year, things started to change. She started dating someone. Some guy whose family apparently has serious money. I never met him in person, but I heard about him constantly. His family's lake house. His family's vacation to the French Riviera over winter break. His family's connections that were supposedly going to get him a job at some prestigious investment firm the day after graduation. Suddenly, everything I provided wasn't good enough anymore. Dad, I really need a new car. Mine is honestly embarrassing to drive around campus. Her car was a 2019 Honda Civic that I bought her used with only 30,000 miles on it. Perfectly reliable. Apparently embarrassing. Dad, can you increase my allowance? $800 really doesn't go as far as it used to around here. I was already stretching my budget to cover everything for her. I told her I'd try to bump it to $900 a month. That's it? His parents give him $2,000 a month, and he doesn't even really need it. I didn't know what to say to that. I was giving her everything I reasonably could. Then came Christmas break, junior year. The beginning of the end. She came home for 2 weeks. Except she didn't really come home. She spent maybe 4 nights at my house total over those 14 days. The rest of the time, she was either at her boyfriend's family's place across town or out with high school friends she'd reconnected with. When she was actually home, she was on her phone constantly. Barely spoke to me beyond one-word answers. When I suggested we have dinner together, she acted like it was a chore she had to endure. On Christmas morning, I gave her the gifts I'd spent weeks picking out. A new MacBook because her old laptop was dying and she'd complained about it constantly. Some expensive clothes from brands she'd mentioned wanting. A $200 gift card to her favorite restaurant near campus so she could treat herself and her friends. She opened everything with this look on her face. Not exactly disappointment. More like tolerance. Like she was humoring me by going through the motions. Thanks, Dad. That was it. No hug. No real excitement. Just thanks, Dad, in a flat voice, and then immediately back to scrolling on her phone. I try to brush it off internally. She's young. She's in a new relationship. She's changing and growing up. That's all normal. Then came the conversation that ended everything between us. It was 2 days before she was supposed to drive back to school. We were in the kitchen. I was making her favorite dinner, trying to get at least one more real meal together before she left. So I said casually, I was thinking maybe spring break you could come home for a few days. We could do something together. Maybe drive down to the coast, get some good seafood, relax a little. She didn't look up from her phone. I'm actually going to Cancun for spring break. With his family. They rented a villa or something. Oh, okay. Well, maybe summer then. I could take some vacation time. I'm probably doing an internship this summer and spending whatever free time I have at his family's lake house. I put down the spatula and turned to face her. When exactly am I going to see you then? She finally looked up from her screen. Annoyed. I don't know, Dad. I'm busy. I have a life now. I can't just drop everything to come hang out here. I know you have a life. I'm just saying, I'd like to see my daughter occasionally. Is that so unreasonable? God, why do you always have to make everything about you? You're so clingy. It's honestly suffocating being around you sometimes. That one genuinely hurt. I'd spent 17 years being everything for this kid, sacrificing constantly, and now wanting to see her occasionally was being clingy and suffocating. I'm not trying to be clingy. I just miss you. That's all. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes at me like I was some annoying stranger. You know what would be a really great gift, Dad? Honestly? Space. You being gone for a while would genuinely be the best gift you could give me. I need room to grow and become my own person without you constantly hovering over everything I do. I stood there for a long moment, processing what my daughter had just said to my face. You being gone would be the best gift I could give you. I didn't mean it like, look, No, I think you meant it exactly like that. She went back to her phone, dismissing me entirely. Whatever. I'm just saying, you need to get your own life instead of living vicariously through mine. I finished making dinner in complete silence. She ate maybe half of it while scrolling through Instagram, barely acknowledging the food I'd made specifically for her. Then she said she was tired and disappeared to her room for the rest of the night. I sat at the kitchen table alone for a very long time after that, thinking about everything I'd sacrificed over nearly 2 decades. The promotions I'd turned down because they required travel and I didn't want to leave her alone. The relationships I never pursued because she always came first. The retirement I delayed because building her college fund seemed more important than my own future. And now I was suffocating her by merely existing. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my HR department and asked about early retirement options. At 54, I could take a reduced pension if I left immediately. Not ideal financially, but workable. I logged into my bank account and looked at my daughter's college fund, $127,000 originally, now down to about $68,000 after 3 years of tuition, room and board, and monthly allowances. Still a very significant amount. I transferred every single penny to my personal retirement account. Then I called the university's bursar office directly. Her spring semester payment was due in 2 weeks. I told them clearly that I would not be making the payment and to remove my name as the responsible party going forward. Then I went online and started researching something I'd always dreamed about but never could pursue because I was too busy raising a child completely alone: extended international travel. I found a company that organizes year-long trips around the world. They handle everything professionally: flights, quality accommodations, guided tours, group activities. You just show up with your suitcase and an open mind. It wasn't cheap. $45,000 for the full 12 months. But I had the money now. For the first time in decades, I had money that was actually mine. I booked it that same day. My daughter left the next morning to drive back to school. I didn't tell her anything about my plans. I just said goodbye like normal, like nothing had changed. Then I submitted my retirement paperwork, gave my 2 weeks notice at work, listed my house with a realtor, and started packing my life into boxes. 2 weeks later, the university called my daughter about the bounce tuition payment. She called me absolutely screaming. "What do you mean you're not paying? Dad? Dad, answer your phone." I answered calmly, completely calm. "You said the best gift I could give you was to be gone. Consider it done." I didn't mean, that's not what. You can't just. I can. And I did. I retired early. I'm leaving the country next week for an entire year. The house is already sold. You're completely on your own now. You can't do this to me. You told me I was suffocating you. You told me to get my own life. I'm finally taking your advice after all these years. What about my tuition? What about my entire senior year? That money was always a gift from me, never a legal obligation. I've reallocated it for my own future. You're an adult. Figure out like millions of other people do. She hung up on me. Over the next several days, I received calls from everyone imaginable. Her boyfriend's mother, who I'd never even met, called to lecture me about how I was abandoning my child. My own brother called to tell me I was being overly dramatic. Even her mother, who I hadn't heard a single word from in over 12 years, somehow got my current number and called to say I was destroying her future. I didn't engage meaningfully with any of them. I just said she asked for space and for me to disappear. I'm giving her exactly what she requested. My flight leaves in 3 days, starting in Portugal and working my way around the entire world over 12 months. Am I being petty? Maybe. But I gave that girl absolutely everything for 17 years. I sacrificed my entire adult life to make sure she had opportunities one could only dream about. And her response was to tell me that my absence would be a gift to her. Fine. Gift accepted. Update 1, 10 days later. Writing this from a sidewalk cafe in Lisbon with a coffee and a pastry. My first real stop on this year-long adventure that my daughter's attitude essentially funded. So a lot has happened since I left the country. The day before my flight, my daughter apparently drove 4 hours to my house in a panic. Except it wasn't my house anymore. The new owners had already moved in and were unpacking boxes. She apparently stood in the driveway, crying until they came outside confused and asked her to please leave their property. She called me absolutely hysterical. Where are you? Where's all our stuff? What is actually happening right now? I was already at a hotel near the airport, preparing for my early morning flight. I told her calmly that I'd already left town and everything from the house was either sold, donated to charity, or sitting in a small storage unit. I kept some photo albums and a few genuinely sentimental items. Everything else was gone. New chapter. You actually sold my childhood home. I sold him. Why home? The one I paid a mortgage on alone for 22 years. You don't live there. You live at college. Or at least you did. This is completely insane. You're clearly having some kind of mental breakdown. I'm having a breakthrough. Actually, first time in over 20 years, I'm doing something purely for myself. She tried a completely different approach then. Started crying heavily, saying she didn't mean what she said at Christmas. That she was stressed about finals and her relationship, and she took everything out on me unfairly. That she actually needed me in her life. You needed my money and my resources. There's a big difference. That's not fair. I love you, Dad. You have a very strange way of showing that. She asked desperately about the college fund. I told her the complete truth. It was gone. Transferred to my retirement account and partially used to fund this trip I'd always dreamed about. There was no more college fund. How am I supposed to finish my degree? Student loans, scholarships, getting a job, the same way millions of other American students manage to do it every single year. But you promised you would pay for my entire education. I promised to support you. You told me clearly that my support was suffocating you. So I stopped supporting you. Seems straightforward. She hung up on me again. Since then, the calls have been coming from every possible direction. Her boyfriend called me directly for the first time ever. He was aggressive from his very first sentence. You need to fix this whole situation immediately. She can't focus on anything. She's a complete mess because of you. And this concerns me. How exactly? She's your daughter. You're supposed to take care of her. She's a legal adult who told her father explicitly that his absence would be a gift to her. I suggest you and your wealthy family step up, since she clearly prefers your lifestyle anyway. He called me several creative names and hung up. Then his mother called me. This woman I'd never met in my life started lecturing me about parental responsibility and how I was traumatizing my daughter permanently. Ma'am, with all due respect, you don't know anything about my relationship with my daughter or the years of context that led to this decision. I know that a father who abandons his child over one comment is. I raised her completely alone for 17 years after her mother abandoned both of us. I paid for absolutely everything. I sacrificed everything. And when I simply asked to spend time with her, she told me I was suffocating her and that me disappearing would be a gift. So I'm giving her exactly what she explicitly asked for. She went quiet for a long moment, then said I was twisting her words and hung up. The most amusing call came from my ex-wife. The woman who literally walked out when our daughter was 7 and sent maybe 15 total birthday cards over the following decade before disappearing entirely. You're really going to abandon her like this? After everything? I actually laughed out loud. The sheer audacity of you calling me about abandonment. That's genuinely impressive. This is completely different. She needs financial support to finish school. Then support her yourself. You're her biological mother. I can't afford to. Neither can I anymore. I'm retired now, living on a fixed pension income. The extra money is gone. You're being completely vindictive over nothing. I'm being honest for the first time in years. Something this family apparently isn't used to hearing. She hung up too. A lot of people hanging up on me lately. Here's the actual update on my daughter's situation from what I've gathered through my brother, who's trying to stay somewhat neutral. She had to officially withdraw from the spring semester because she couldn't pay tuition in time. The university gave her a 2-week grace period, but she couldn't come up with $12,000 that quickly without my help. She's apparently back home now. Except home is her boyfriend's family's guest house because she literally has nowhere else to go. She's applied for federal student loans to return in the fall, but she'll have to cover the entire cost herself going forward. She's also apparently gotten a part-time job at some retail store to start saving money. Part of me feels genuinely guilty about that. She's my daughter. I raised her from childhood. I love her despite everything that happened. But then I remember sitting alone in that kitchen, being told that my presence was suffocating and my absence would be the best gift I could give her, and the guilt fades pretty quickly. I'm staying in Lisbon for 2 more weeks exploring, then Spain, then Morocco, then wherever the itinerary takes me next. More updates as things develop. Update 2, 6 weeks later. Writing this from a small hotel room in Barcelona with a glass of local wine. I've been traveling for almost 2 months now, and honestly, best decision I've ever made for myself in my entire adult life. But things back home have gotten more complicated. Let me catch everyone up. First, my daughter. After my last update, she apparently went through what my brother diplomatically called an adjustment period. Translation: she was furious, then deeply sad, then furious again in cycles. She kept a retail job, minimum wage, inconsistent part-time hours. Not exactly the prestigious finance career path she'd been planning. She also applied for student loans and got approved, but the total amount she'll need plus accumulated interest means she'll be paying them off for many years after graduation. She did eventually re-enroll for the spring semester. Had to take out the full loan amount entirely herself. No more daddy's college fund subsidizing everything. Here's where things get genuinely interesting, though. About 3 weeks ago, I received an unexpected email. Not from my daughter, from her boyfriend's father. Apparently, my daughter had been telling absolutely everyone who would listen that I had stolen her college fund and abandoned her with zero warning. She painted herself as an innocent victim of an abusive, controlling father who randomly snapped one day and vindicatively destroyed her entire life for no reason. The boyfriend's family, being wealthy and well-connected, apparently started quietly looking into whether there was any legal action they could take against me on her behalf. Maybe force me to pay her tuition or return the college fund money. So his father actually hired a lawyer to formally review the entire situation. The lawyer looked at all the documentation and told them the uncomfortable truth. There was never any college fund legally in my daughter's name. It was always my money in my personal account that I had been voluntarily gifting to the university on her behalf each semester. I had absolutely no legal obligation to continue those gifts. I hadn't stolen anything from anyone. The boyfriend's father emailed me to verify this information. I think he fully expected me to deny it or feel ashamed or defensive. Instead, I replied with a detailed factual breakdown. The account was in my name only, always. The funds came entirely from my salary and bonuses accumulated over 18 years of saving. I voluntarily paid tuition directly to the university as a gift to my daughter. I was under no legal obligation whatsoever to continue. I stopped making those payments when my daughter informed me directly that my presence in her life was suffocating and that my permanent absence would be the best gift I could give her. I took her at her word. There's nothing to litigate here. He never responded to my email. But my brother told me that apparently the boyfriend's family has cooled significantly on my daughter since learning the actual facts. Turns out wealthy people aren't thrilled when their son's potential future wife might be a financial liability who fabricates stories for sympathy. Speaking of the boyfriend, they're apparently on a break now. I don't know all the specific details, but from what I've gathered through my brother, the stress of this entire situation caused constant fighting between them. She expected his wealthy family to step up and basically replace my financial support. They expected her to handle her own problems like an adult. She became resentful of their lack of help. He became distant and frustrated. Now, they're figuring things out separately. My daughter finally emailed me directly about 2 weeks ago. First real contact since those initial screaming phone calls. The email was long and clearly carefully written. I'll summarize the key points. She said she was sorry for what she said at Christmas. She claimed she didn't mean it the way it came out. She was stressed about school and her relationship, and she unfairly took it out on me. She said she understood why I was hurt, but that my response was completely disproportionate. That cutting her off financially and literally disappearing for a year was extreme and not something a loving father would do. She asked if there was any possibility we could rebuild our relationship once I returned from my trip. She said she wanted a relationship with me, but that I needed to acknowledge the trauma I'd caused by leaving so suddenly without warning. I read that email probably 5 or 6 times carefully before composing my response. Here's what I finally wrote back. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm going to be completely honest with you, which is something I probably should have done years ago. For 17 years, I gave you absolutely everything I had. I turned down promotions that could have advanced my career because they required travel. I didn't date anyone seriously because you always came first. I didn't travel anywhere interesting. I didn't pursue hobbies or personal interests. My entire existence revolved around making sure you had opportunities one never had growing up. I'm not saying this to guilt you. I'm saying it because it's simply the truth. And the truth is, I enabled your entitlement by never setting any real boundaries or expectations. When you told me that me being gone would be a gift, something fundamental broke inside me. Not because of those specific words alone, but because of everything that led up to them over the years. The constant eye rolls, the dismissiveness whenever I spoke, the complaints about your car not being nice enough despite being perfectly reliable, the complaints about your monthly allowance not being high enough despite being more than I spent on myself, the complete lack of any gratitude for anything I provided. You're right that my response was extreme, but it was also the first time in over 2 decades that I chose myself over you. And I'm not going to apologize for finally doing that. Why get back to the country? I'm open to rebuilding something between us, but it won't look like what we had before. I won't be your ATM anymore. I won't be the person you only call when you need money or favors. I'll be your father, and you'll treat me with the basic respect that relationship requires, or we simply won't have a relationship at all. Take some time to think carefully about what you actually want from me. I'll be back in 10 months. She hasn't responded to that email yet. It's been 2 weeks. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about any of this, honestly. Some days I feel completely vindicated in my decision. Other days, I genuinely miss her and wonder if I went too far. But then I remember the look on her face when she opened her Christmas gifts. That expression of mere tolerance. Like I was an inconvenience she had to endure. I'm currently still in Barcelona, enjoying the architecture and food. Next week, I head to the south of France, then eventually Italy. I've met genuinely amazing people from all over the world on this trip. I've seen incredible things I only ever read about before. I wake up every single morning actually excited about the day ahead, which is something I haven't felt in many years. For the first time in my entire adult life, I'm living for myself. And whatever happens with my daughter when I eventually return, I know I'll never go back to being the doormat I was before. She asked for me to be gone. I left. Now, she's learning what life actually looks like without the father she took completely for granted. That's not revenge. That's just natural consequences. Thanks for following along, everyone.